Canada is at it once again. Recent findings from a high-level Canadian parliamentary committee have placed India as the second biggest foreign threat to Canadian democracy following China. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responded to this development by emphasizing his government's concern regarding foreign interference. The report, remember, coincides with heightened tensions between the two countries, worsened by Trudeau's prior allegations accusing the Indian government agents of involvement in the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. New Delhi has promptly dismissed these accusations as baseless. The report, remember, alleges that India has become the second most significant foreign interference threat to Canada's democratic institutions and processes, displacing Russia. India's foreign interference efforts have gradually expanded beyond countering pro-Khalistan elements in Canada. That's what the report is saying. This, remember, comes amid the two countries having strained ties. To talk more on this, I'm joined by Canadian journalist Daniel Bordman. Daniel, good evening. Namaskar. Welcome to Mirror Now. Big claim by Canada once again. Once again, we are seeing allegations and accusations by the Justin Trudeau government against India without actually giving out some substantial evidence as to why it lists India as the number 2 threat.
Yeah, it's a bit strange, especially to leapfrog Russia. I'm glad that we still recognize China's number 1. Because I have very little faith in the institutions, but they got that one right. And I was trying to figure out how they could come to this conclusion, and it could be a confluence of a lot of things. Like, okay, there could be some truth to this. You could say that's one argument. You could say, okay, they were behind Nijjar, and the Indian government is there trying to deal with the Khalistani element in Canada, and this is a big problem. You could take that track, but then when you go down that track, you have to look at, okay, what is the interference India is doing in our system? And they say, okay, it goes beyond countering Khalistani extremism, sure, but I haven't really seen any Indian influence in Canada outside of the sort of anti-Khalistan stuff, and that seems to be the majority. And the reason why there might be some confusion as to the threat of India in foreign interference is because we've had so many Khalistani, let's say, sympathetic members of parliament and even in the cabinet. I mean, we once had a cabinet with Amarjit Soji, Harjit Saj, and Navdeep Bains at the same time. Is it that, the Indian government was trying to counter the Khalistani element that's deeply embedded itself inside Canada, and we just can't tell the difference between Canada and Khalistan anymore? Okay, that's one thing. Could it be that there's people in our intelligence services and our government who simply don't understand Khalistan and might be mistaking some people advocating for Khalistani nonsense in India as India, right? You just, all things are India. So even the anti-Indian elements count as India, and we just can't distinguish. In which case, listen, if you can't Khalistani interference in Canadian politics as foreign interference, and then you classify Khalistanis as Indian, then yeah, they're number 2 behind China. If you do the data that way.
What's ironical, Daniel, in all of this is the fact that this report comes amid renewed protests that we are seeing by Khalistani sympathizers on Canadian soil outside the Indian embassy there. We're seeing, former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's effigies being destroyed, the tricolour, the Indian national flag being damaged there outside the embassy. That is something that the Trudeau government is not working on. If at all there is a threat, I think India should be the one actually, talking about the threat that Canada and its soil is harboring there with the Khalistani sympathizers.
No, listen, I agree. I would say from the Canadian angle, it's a Canadian threat to Canada, this Khalistani nonsense. They blew up the Air India, like the worst terrorist attack in our history, not India's history, was the Air India bombing. So we should have learned the lesson that this is not pro-Canada. And, we're on the anniversary of all the Operation Blue Star stuff coming up. And there's been a big push to sort of make it this year. Every level of the NDP, federal and now provincial, even where there aren't really Khalistani leaders, the Khalistan element is sort of fully seeped into the NDP, which is our third party. But you're seeing conservatives, even federal conservatives, being more bold on their Khalistani stances. Tim Uppal, deputy leader of the Conservative Party, he put out a version of Operation Blue Star that that maintains that forgets there was a terror wave leading up to it and just pretends that the Golden Temple was filled with purely just women and children playing in a pool with no hardened terrorists held up there for a while. So we have this in our country where there's a massive spike in what I've termed Khalistani nonsense. A lot of it had to do with the fact that they've seen that for the last 8 months the Hamas crowd has been on the street, and for the month before that they were on the streets. But there's been no pushback towards any bad behavior, open support of terrorism on our streets every day for the last 8 to 9 months. There's been a group gathering in public on film openly praising a foreign terrorist organization or calling for more terrorism. That's just where we are. So you're seeing this uptick. Now, is the interference, is the fact,
Daniel, can I also then understand from you why is the Trudeau government, why is Justin Trudeau then not acting upon such elements? You talked about, Hamas sympathizers. We talked about the Khalistani sympathizers. Is it just the domestic audience that he is catering to, or is there something more to it?
Oh, there's definitely something more. It's an immigration fraud scheme and a money laundering scheme. In Canada, we have tons of natural resources. We just don't use them. So we used to be a resource economy. We had lumber, we had oil, things that people need to survive and thrive, but those are not green. So we didn't turn them green, so we shut off our economy. Instead, our economy is now money laundering and human trafficking under the guise of immigration or student visas, right? So it's a massive student visa problem where we're defrauding all these people, mostly from India, but other countries too, these phony language schools, taking tens of thousands of dollars from them, bringing them here to take a online course once a week at a school that doesn't even have a physical address, or if it does, it's like an office in a strip mall. And then we're just taking all these, and then some of these people are getting into being funneled because they're kind of being left and screwed over. They're being funneled into, Khalistani gangs, a lot of them, if they're from the Punjab region or other organized crime. And that's sort of what our economy is right now. It's immigration fraud and money laundering, and it's run because it's a sort of a black market thing. Of course, it's run by all the bad actors in the world. So you'll find the CCP, the Russians, Khalistanis, Muslim Brotherhood, organized crime. All of this is swiftly involved in. There's billions of dollars in it, and Occam's razor is that the reason why the Liberal government isn't stopping it is because the Liberal government thinks they benefit off of this, both by bringing in voter bases and stacking the numbers of just people who think will vote Liberal, but also there's financial ties between a lot of the nonsense and the Liberal Party. We've seen Trudeau with a history of giving sole source contracts to all this. There's been multiple ethics violations. And it's sort of a dirty open secret that no one really wants to touch because it's billions of dollars here, and it goes so deep that the Trudeau government is benefiting off of the sort of defrauding of the Canadian immigration system, and probably all parties are as well. And this is where we're at right now. And one of the side effects of this is the rapid growth of ideological extremism, which the Trudeau government and the NDP and the left decided to pander to. They decided to get more pro-terrorist, more pro-extremist to win these votes. Then they know they're going to lose in 2025, but they're building up a voter base for 2029 and beyond of radical anti-Western extremists who will vote Liberal for